Okay, hold up. Before we begin, you're gonna have to make a decision. Which do you value more? An absolutely sublime driving experience with luxurious interior appointments and thoughtful construction and consideration to every detail? Or do you just want sheer size?
That's what she said.
What's up everyone, Jax here, and today I have one of the best driving, most beautiful, and honestly most luxurious three-row SUVs on the market, the Mazda CX-9. Okay, maybe I was a little unfair in the opening, because years ago, Mrs. Jax and I chose a Suburban specifically for its gargantuan size. And I get it, maybe you actually do need that much space, or you think that you would actually use that much space if you had it. So why am I emphasizing this space issue so much at the beginning of this review? Well, mainly because if you are considering a Mazda CX-9, that is the primary thing you need to consider. And a lot of what we talk about today is going to revolve around that, because in almost every other way, it's uniformly excellent.
What I mean is that the Mazda CX-9 is practically perfect in most ways that matter to family SUV buyers. It's beautifully styled, especially in Mazda's signature color, Soul Red. It's luxuriously appointed in its top trim level, and it drives far better than any other vehicle in its class. It is an absolutely phenomenal SUV, full of thoughtful touches and carefully engineered details.
So why doesn't it sell more? Why is it outsold 2-to-1 by crap like the Nissan Pathfinder and 5-to-1 by a very lackluster Ford Explorer? Well, the main reason is size. The Mazda CX-9's gorgeous exterior comes at a price. The CX-9 is far smaller than most other vehicles in its class. Here's a quick comparison against one of the class leaders, the Honda Pilot. The Mazda has 14.4 cubic feet of space behind its third row, and it only has 38 cubic feet of space behind its second row. But the Honda Pilot has 18 cubic feet of space behind its third row and a whopping 55 cubic feet of space behind its second row. It's also worth noting that the smaller Honda Passport has a ridiculous 50 cubic feet of space behind its second row. And even the Honda CR-V has 39 cubic feet of space behind its second row. So yes, to recap, the Honda CR-V has more space behind its second row than the Mazda CX-9 has behind its second row. And there are even bigger vehicles in this class. The Chevrolet Traverse has even more cubic feet of space behind its rows, although I didn't bother to look it up, but the numbers are larger as numbers are when there is more of something. That's a little bit of math help for you. Mrs. Jax is a math teacher, so she'll be very proud of me for that statement. I know it sounds like I'm kind of crapping on the CX-9 here in terms of interior space, and I'm treating it like it's a Nissan Pathfinder or something. But let me make a case for why you should buy a CX-9. As I've said before, in the Toyota Avalon video, for example, people often vastly overestimate the amount of space they think they need in a vehicle. And even if you do need that space in a vehicle like once or twice a year, you're driving your car or truck or SUV every day regardless of that need. In short, what I mean is that buying a car or SUV for what you might need it for 1% of the time is silly, when you could get a far more rewarding car that fits your needs the other 99% of the time. And either way, way, you're driving it 100% of the time. So what is the Mazda CX-9 like to drive? Well, in a word, it's splendiferous. What? I said a word. I didn't say it was a real word. Don't judge me. Let's see what Mrs. Jax has to say about the driving experience before I chime in. Take it away, Mrs. Jax. We're to you, live. I'm standing in public doing all of these things. This is the life of a YouTuber, just getting stared at by people. I'm in a public park. Looks like I'm all by myself. It looks like there's this car behind me all alone, but there's not. There's people walking by right now and they're like,
I really like it. It drives really smoothly. That's probably my favorite thing about it, surprisingly, is how smooth it drives. My car does not drive that smooth. My personal vehicle is much older, so I got in here and I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm like floating. And it brakes like, you've had some cars, I don't remember off the top of my head, that like brake, I feel like they brake hard, like kind of jerky or whatever, like just because you're not used to it, but this car doesn't have that. It's just super smooth. The gas is smooth, the brakes are smooth, all of it. The ride, I feel like I'm like floating on the road. And so I really like that. And I like all the gizmos and gadgets. I like heads-up display, but I can't see it because you set it too high for tall people and you won't tell me how to fix it. And I think it looks really cool. And there's like lane keep and how fast I'm going and how fast the speed limit is, which I really like because I hate when I'm like somewhere, I'm a little paranoid about being pulled over because I've been pulled over before for dumb reasons. So anyway, I don't like when I'm driving and I don't know how fast I'm going. So I know that's like a thing in a lot of cars, but they have it there and there's a thing here. And my favorite thing is that on the speedometer, like right now the speed limit's 45, so 45 is like red on the speedometer. That's really cool because it gives you like a good visual, you know, like, oh, if you like to keep, you know, go about 5 over or 10 over or whatever you like to do, you can like have a good visual of how high over the speed limit you're going. The steering wheel is nice and smooth and feels very good. So I really like that part. I like this heads up. It's very intuitive. It was easy for me to learn. Some of the cars you have are not easy for me to learn. And this one I could just figure it out really quick how to do the little knobby thing here. Does it have a name? It's like a knobby turny circle thing. It's very pretty. I like how like soft all the leather is and stuff. And I think it looks pretty good from the outside, but I really like it. Like really, really like it. My seat's very comfortable. The cooled seats are very nice. They're a little loud, but I like them. The windshield wipers are pretty cool. They come on automatically. I guess if you have them on that setting, I don't know. But I was driving in the rain the other day and then they just came on and then they like slow down and speed up depending on how the rain is. And I actually thought they were pretty, I've never had a car that had that, but I thought they were pretty good. Like they went the speed I would have wanted them to go had I been doing them myself. So that was, I thought a good positive. Also the headlights, well, first of all, the grill looks pretty cool, like lights up and everything. But the headlights like do this weird swivel thing. So like when you turn, they like swivel with you. So they're like always like aimed at where you're going, I guess. And I was driving last night in the dark and the brights came on because I was like on a road where no one else was. And the brights came on and then they like come on and off depending on what's around you. He's had other cars like that, but it like wasn't very good. And I felt like I was like blinding people half the time with the brights coming on when I really wouldn't have wanted them on. But it was like, I thought it was actually very, very good timing. They came on when I would have wanted them to and off when I did not want them off, or when I did not want them on. So anyway, I really like the headlights and the brights and the windshield wipers. A couple of my friends have seen this car and they're like, ooh, I really like that. They all think it like looks really nice and drives smoothly. So, you know, when other people think your car looks nice, it's always a good thing. But yeah, so that's it. I like it.
Before we get into my impressions on the way the CX-9 drives, let's marvel for a second at what Mazda has done with the engine, the 4-cylinder turbocharged Sky Active engine that powers the CX-9. Mazda as a company is not as large as Honda or Toyota, so oftentimes they have to come up with sort of clever solutions to problems rather than just making and answer a solution from scratch. They can't really afford to compared to Honda or Toyota. To be honest, it's a really endearing characteristic that permeates all of the vehicles in their lineup. The sort of plucky sense of can-do, of making the best out of a situation and making the best of what you have to solve that situation. And this sense of innovation results in a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine tuned exactly for the way that people drive their large SUVs. Let me explain. This is Mazda's awesome 250 horsepower turbocharged 4 that pumps out 320 pound-feet of torque. Yes, you can put regular unleaded in it and the horsepower drops to 227, but why would you do that? Why? Why would you do that? No, seriously, why would you? I genuinely worry about someone who would do that, who would knowingly put in regular unleaded and get less horsepower. Are you okay? Blink once for yes. Because only some kind of monster would willingly give up power and torque to save a few cents per gallon. Your mom fed you cornflakes, didn't she? She didn't allow you to have the sugary cereals. You spent your whole childhood wondering what Cinnamon Toast Crunch must have been like, only to watch cornflakes slowly melt in a bowl of skim milk. I'm sorry.
I am Jack's complete lack of surprise.
Anyway, Mazda tuned the engine to deliver peak torque right when you set off from a stop. And the engine makes its peak power at 2,500 RPM. So the CX-9 pulls very hard away from red lights, and you would never know that this large SUV was powered by something as small as a turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's really only at highway speeds, when you put the pedal down, do you realize that the engine is a little overmatched, and even then, it's not much. It's definitely not one of the slower vehicles in the class. Overall, this powertrain combination, even with the 6-speed automatic, which is a few less gears than most of its competitors have, this powertrain punches way above its weight. And honestly, that's kind of how the CX-9 drives as well. So how does the Mazda CX-9 drive? It drives unlike any other vehicle in its class. And I'm talking about 3-row SUVs of substantial size. In fact, the CX-9, to be honest with you, drives a lot smaller than it really is. It feels not much different than driving the CX-5, and that's a testament to how well Mazda engineers the driving experience. This car, simply put, drives amazing. Absolutely amazing for the type of vehicle it is, the size of vehicle it is. It is smooth, confidence inspiring. The suspension is sporty, it's got a firmness to it, but the way it handles impacts and road imperfections is just otherworldly. It's really difficult to believe and sometimes be reminded that you are driving a fairly large 3-row crossover utility vehicle when you feel like you're driving a much smaller and much more athletic and sporty vehicle. Now, that doesn't mean that the CX-9 is gonna carve corners, but it inspires a level of confidence in the car that's really tough to put into words. You really have to drive this car. You really need to take a test drive and get behind the wheel to appreciate the way that the CX-9 drives. Mazdas have just this special little extra bit of magic in the way that they drive, just that little something extra. The best thing that I can compare it to, and this is not an exaggeration, this is the truth, the best thing I can compare it to is a sort of Germanic feel. Mazdas are probably the closest mainstream brand to driving something like a BMW or Mercedes or an Audi. Again, that's not an exaggeration, that is the truth. Mazdas have an incredible balance of capability and sportiness. That was literally the first thing Mrs. Jack said when she drove the car. Immediately commented on the way the car handled. So I just turned on to my handling road, and I've already been down it a couple times, and one of the things that struck me about the Mazda is the way that it manages the road's imperfections while also cosseting you from the sort of harsh impacts. That section right there at the beginning is very wallowy, and the Mazda suspension stays planted and firm. This first corner is a bit sharp. There is body roll in the CX-9. It is a very large car, but it went right through that corner at a decent rate of speed. I'm not going to disclose it. It was about 10 over the speed limit. We'll say above 50. And then up here, there's a particularly nasty impact on the front right tire. And two things stand out to me about this. The first is the way the Mazda handles it. It's coming up right here. That was it. So it's able to cushion you from that impact, which in some cars like the Genesis G70, it was harsh. That car rides very sporty, and it was a harsh, sharp impact. The Mazda maintains that firmness of its suspension, but it subdues and sort of cushions that initial impact at the same time. It's a really impressive blend of protecting the passengers from the initial impact while also not bouncing and jouncing on its suspension. It's not wallowing around. I use that word a lot, wallowing. I can't stand when cars wallow. And the Mazda CX-9, despite being a very large car, does not wallow at all. It's really, really well done. The other thing that I said that I noticed that's impressive about that is that there is no reverberation through the cabin. The Mazda CX-9 is not only impressively isolated, but let's take this turn kind of fast. Ready? Wow. Body roll, yeah, that's there, but like not even a protest from the tires. And that's like a nasty off-camber corner too. What I was saying about the cabin is that this is a vault-like structure. When you close the doors, they close with a muffled whump. It's nice and solid. The way the car handles the impacts not only is impressive with the suspension, but it's also impressive in that you don't hear any jitters and creaks and groans throughout the cabin. It's almost as if the sound of the impact is sort of pushed away from you and it's somewhere else. It's not here. Surely you couldn't have driven over something like that in your Mazda. Just shows the attention to detail that Mazda is sort of taking those higher, more premium, actually luxury kind of features. That isolation of a Lexus, the sort of firmness of a Mercedes or a BMW, the management of taking a front-wheel drive platform and using all-wheel drive to make it feel more athletic like an Audi. Mazda's really leveraging all of these techniques to make this driving experience feel a lot more luxurious than you would think for the price. This car is $48,000, but as I've said, it feels $48,000. I said the same thing about the Toyota Avalon, to be honest with you, and this cabin is as good or better than that cabin. I would say it's better. The design is better, the material quality is better, the attention to detail is better. One of the things I criticized the Avalon for was that it had some kind of plasticky buttons. There was some kind of gross gray plastic buttons. Nope, not here. All premium. Every piece of switchgear moves with a sort of oiled precision. The buttons are the same sort of texture and quality of plastic as everything else. In fact, the only sort of aesthetic demerit I would give this cabin is that much of the lighting is sort of white LEDs, and for some reason the center screen gauge is very bright and crisp, while the two flanking it are a little bit more yellowed. That's about it though. This cabin is a nice place to be. As you can see, I have plenty of space. In fact, the seat is actually not optimized for me because Mrs. Jax literally just got out of this car doing her sort of test of it, and I jumped in. She likes to drive sitting way back, so we actually don't adjust the seat that much, even though I'm much taller. She likes to drive with her legs extended, which I don't like to drive that way. It's also not usually possible for me to drive that way. The active driving itself in the CX-9 is sporty, but it's also comforting in the sense that it does exactly what you expect it to do. The brake pedal feel is superb, absolutely superb in a vehicle of this size and this class. It's firm, it's linear, and stopping smoothly. This is probably one of the best brake pedals I've had in a couple cars. Very well done. Throttle calibration, spot on. This 250 horsepower Turbo 4 Pros, it feels great coming off a stop. It gets up to speed quickly. It is perfectly suited for the type of driving that this car is going to do most of the time. Cons, gas mileage kind of sucks. It's not really any better than a V6 or like the V8 in our Suburban, to be honest with you. I'm just saying. But it is a very good solution to the sort of problem of mass. Turbocharging that four-cylinder up to 320 pound-feet of torque, coming in at only 2,500 RPM, feels great, suits the car well. My only complaint would be I like the steering. I think it is perfectly weighted. I use the word perfect a lot with this car because for a 3-row SUV, you really cannot ask a car to drive much better than this. However, off-center, it's not quite as crisp as I would like it to be. I would like a little bit more turn-in off-center before it weights up. But to be honest with you, that's just the complaint of an enthusiast. Mrs. Jax thought the steering in the car in general was absolutely impeccable. And I mean, it is, you know, come on. I'm a car enthusiast. I gotta complain about something, but that is like a minor quibble. Another common complaint I have about a lot of the cars I test is that a lot of the auto systems are kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Stupid. This Mazda CX-9 has auto high beams and auto rain sensing wipers, both of which I have used in the week that I've had it, and both of which worked pretty much flawlessly. So it's kind of nice when you have these automatic systems that work really well.
Inside the Mazda CX-9 Signature trim, you'll find Napa leather, Santos rosewood, and actual aluminum trim. It all adds up to a cabin that feels a step ahead of every other vehicle in its class, both in design and quality. The minimalistic design emphasizes the CX-9's quality, and every contact point, from the steering wheel to the armrests to the seats themselves, feels decidedly upscale.
It is a simply gorgeous interior, and I think Mazda is right to move up market. They've been heading that way for a while now, and this interior is easily on par with something that you'd find in something like an Acura. And to be honest, it's a lot more premium feeling and more luxuriously appointed than that Buick Enclave I had a few months ago. Everything feels expensive, and as someone who was raised solidly middle class, I just don't understand what more you could want from an interior. At almost $48,000 for this signature trim, this is an expensive SUV, but to be honest with you, it feels expensive. It has a crystal clear head-up display. It has every infotainment connection that you could possibly want. It has Mazda's excellent and complete suite of safety technology, and it has other thoughtful touches as well, like a nav system that displays the name of the upcoming street no matter what's on the screen. It just pops up at the top of the screen. That is a thoughtful touch, and you guys know I am against nav systems in cars. I think they're stupid, especially with modern cell phones. But that is one of the simplest and most thoughtful touches I've seen in a nav system in quite some time. Well done, Mazda. Well done. I really like this interior, and no matter what row you're sitting in, attention has been paid to the smallest detail. And speaking of rows, while I started this review highlighting the Mazda CX-9's smaller cargo carrying capacity, it does a decent job of preserving passenger space. I can sit behind myself, and children 10 and under can comfortably sit in the third row. We actually filled this car with 6 people the other day, and Hallie and one of her friends were sitting in the third row, and they were perfectly comfortable. We couldn't carry anything with us, but they were back there. It's not that the Mazda CX-9 is too small to carry 6 people in comfort. It just can't carry a lot of stuff along with those 6 people.
So let's circle back to the original question. Even though the Mazda CX-9 is a size smaller than most vehicles in its class, should you buy one? Personally, I think a drive in the CX-9 might be all it takes to convince you. There simply isn't another 3-row SUV that drives like the CX-9, and its interior appointments and style are really only rivaled by the Kia Telluride. It's a stunner on the outside, but that sexy sheet metal and perfect proportions are the very reasons that it's smaller than its main rivals.
So let's look at this logically. Other than the Mazda's lack of cargo carrying capacity, are there any real negatives? Well, not really.
And while it does have cameras all around, the resolution is about the same as a Game Boy. So the cameras could be a little more, HD.
And while I think Mazda's infotainment interface is one of the simplest and most intuitive, like many infotainment systems currently, it is a little bit laggy and sometimes slow to respond. I do like Mazda's sort of rotary knob control. I think that's super simple and kind of the closest thing to BMW's iDrive from a mainstream brand. But if you find the system to be laggy or hard to decipher, it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so it's a non-issue really. But I generally like Mazda's infotainment system interface. I just wish all automakers would speed up the systems a little bit. Come on, we're impatient, man. We're impatient. I have a smartphone that responds instantly. Make the system like that. I know I get off a rant about this every single time, don't I? Look, I want Mazda to win. I really do. I love their can-do attitude, their emphasis on driving and the driving experience, and I love their aggressive move up market. It's bold, it's refreshing. I like that kind of initiative. I want to see companies like that succeed because we need more passion, we need more soul in every industry, but especially with cars. As an enthusiast, I love that sort of thing. We need more life in our day-to-day transportation.
And at the end of the day, that's really what Mazda is selling. They're selling passion. They're taking an activity that some consider a chore or even a burden, and they're doing their best to infuse that mundane activity with a sense of purpose and joy. Whether it's to spread a smile across the face of an enthusiast or alleviate the stress of the morning commute, Mazda is trying to make your day just a little bit brighter. I love them for that. and I admire their ambition and their relentless devotion to the act of driving. The CX-9 is not the most practical choice among three-row SUVs, but it might just be the one that makes you feel alive every time you slide behind the wheel. Mazda clearly takes its company slogan seriously. Drive one, and you will too.
Does the mirror look okay?
Yeah, just drive in loops around the parking lot, because that makes sense. How sad must your life be if you're just driving your white crossover, it's like a Hyundai Santa Fe or something, just in loops. Tragic. Okay, motorcycle. Okay, I hear you. Interesting sounding car. There's a lot of birds out today. It's like 90 degrees today. Maybe they're chirping because they're all melting. Hope he doesn't ride that motorcycle up here. Ugh, I'm like Amish. Do I look Amish to you? I mean, I'm the worst dressed Amish person ever. And I don't think an Amish person would be reviewing a Mazda CX-9, but I mean, maybe they would. Maybe there's like a three-row like wagon or something. Maybe there's Amish YouTube. There can't be Amish YouTubers though, can there? What if there were? And they were like, what's up everybody? I'm Jedediah, and today we're taking a look at this three-row wagon with some big brown horses, and my wife wears a bonnet. Anyway, Mazda 2. Why are there horses in the middle of the road? I don't think that's what the horse park is for. Pretty sure you're supposed to ride on the horse trails, not in the road. People can't even social distance and wear masks, and they're riding horses in the streets. Only in Georgia. People on the horses are gonna wonder why I'm making multiple passes. They probably think I'm like turning them in or something. I don't even know how you would turn someone in for riding a horse in the middle of the street. Hello, 911. There's a person riding a horse in the middle of the street. Oh, sir, could you state the make and model of the horse? Well, it's big and brown, and there's like 6 of them, and there's a lot of poo. A lot of Audis at the park today. It's weird. Usually it's just a bunch of people vaping in Subarus. What? Another Audi? What is going on here? It's like an Audi meetup. Look both ways on the horse path, you know, where the horses are supposed to be. You've got to be kidding me. There was a trail of horse crap across the road. Like, what is wrong with people? Man, that was weird. That was friggin' weird, man. Frickin' weird. Now they're gonna come pick up the car and they're gonna be like, you're not getting any more cars to test because this one has horse poo on it. I'll be like, it's not my fault, man. Hey, there's a bunny. Okay, that's a good sign. Positivity, right? That truck is like exploding as it drives by. Okay, still going. Still going.